The palace was not shaken by loud voices, it was shaken by silence. Just 5 minutes after the royal household received a private confirmation, Prince William and Catherine shared the news no one expected. King Charles's health had taken a serious turn, forcing urgent talks about duty, succession, and the future of the monarchy. What started as a private medical update quickly became a heartbreaking public moment. Before we go deeper into what this means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any updates. William did not rush to make the announcement. He stood there, staring at the words as if they could change his life forever. Catherine stayed by his side, quietly supporting him while giving him space to absorb the news. The palace confirmed that senior royal duties would now be urgently reviewed. That single line carried enormous weight. It showed this was far more than a health update. It signaled the palace was preparing for the possibility of major changes in who would carry the crown's daily responsibilities. Catherine watched William read the final sentence twice. His grip tightened, then slowly relaxed, knowing nothing could change what was already written.
The king is in a much worse health and much worse shape than he appears to be. All of this has had a devastating effect upon his health.
Charles was not in the room when the confirmation was prepared, and that absence hit everyone harder than any warning could. The king had always been at the center of these decisions. Now his silence became the clearest sign that something serious had changed behind palace walls. The sealed health update followed a private palace briefing where trusted medical advisors shared confidential information before any public statement was made. A medical advisor is simply a doctor who helps guide official decisions when a royal's health affects public duties. That mattered because this was no longer based on rumors. It was a formal warning serious enough to reach William and Catherine first.
Talk about the elephant in the room. There are growing concerns again for King Charles's health and the fact that his terminal cancer diagnosis has been worsened.
William quietly placed the paper on the table. He did not raise his voice or react with anger. That calm made the moment even more emotional. Catherine saw not only the future king, but a son trying to hide his heartbreak before the country could understand what was happening. She knew those words would soon reach every screen and every home. A private order quickly spread through the palace. No unnecessary movement, no public denials, and no comments from any royal office until William spoke. That instruction mattered because one careless statement could damage public trust or create confusion. The palace wanted control, while the family wanted time. But Charles's condition left little room for either. Before the announcement, William looked at Catherine. She did not give a speech. Her quiet support was enough. He understood that once the words were spoken, this would no longer be only a family matter. It would become a moment that tested the monarchy and everyone carrying its responsibilities.
And while Buckingham Palace doesn't want King Charles's health put on the agenda, they want us all to believe Charles's stand up to cancer announcement that things are getting better because he's been able to reduce somewhat his treatment this year.
For William, it felt like the fears of childhood had returned in a new and painful way. For Catherine, it was a moment to stand beside him as everything around their family began to change. For Charles, it was a harsh reminder that even a king cannot control time. And for Camilla, it marked the start of a loneliness no royal title could ease. William stared at the announcement as if every line made it heavier. He was no longer there only as a son, he was also the heir, the next in line to the crown if the monarch can no longer carry out the role. That mattered because Charles's health crisis had suddenly made the future feel much closer. The monarchy needed steady leadership, and William knew all eyes were already on him.
It's been slightly disingenuous because Charles is not operating at full capacity. He is unable to. This is a very, very ill man, and if you look at some of the pictures of him this week at the carers event at Buckingham Palace, where he attended alongside Queen Camilla and Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister.
Catherine gently placed her hand over his, not to stop him, but to remind him he was not facing this alone. She understood the difference between duty and grief. She knew he was carefully choosing words for the public while keeping his deepest pain private. Her calm presence helped hold the room together. Before the announcement moved forward, Charles made one request. He wanted William and Catherine to share the news themselves, not a palace aide or an official spokesperson. A palace aide is a trusted staff member who helps manage royal duties and private instructions. That decision mattered because Charles wanted the future of the monarchy to speak with both strength and compassion. Camilla received the news separately. She remained seated as the door quietly closed, her face pale and her hands still. She had stood beside Charles for many difficult moments, but this one felt different. Even as queen consort, there was little that could ease the weight of that moment. This was not gossip or family drama. It was the king's health forcing the palace into difficult decisions no one was ready to face. A senior aide quietly removed a folder of Charles's upcoming public engagements from his desk. Public engagements are the official visits and appearances where royals represent the crown. That simple action spoke louder than any statement. It suggested some planned events might never happen as expected. William noticed the empty space on the desk. Catherine saw the change in his expression. Camilla heard the silence after the door closed and realized the familiar routine had been broken. The announcement had already shaken the palace, but an even deeper struggle remained hidden. William understood it. Catherine could feel it. Charles had prepared for it. And Camilla, left alone with the truth, realized the confirmation was only the beginning. To understand why it carried such weight, the family had to look back to the moment everything started to change.
Let me tell you something that a member of the royal family, a senior member of the royal family, said day before yesterday. First of all, the king is in a much worse health and much worse shape than he appears to be. All of this has had a devastating effect upon his health.
Every royal crisis has one moment that later seems impossible to forget. For this one, it was not a public appearance or a breaking headline. It began during a private family dinner at Windsor. In the middle of a conversation, Charles reached for his glass, suddenly paused, and looked at William with an expression that made the entire room fall silent. Charles hoped for one peaceful evening to discuss future royal duties without causing alarm. Those duties were more than dates on a calendar. They showed the public that the monarch was still able to lead. William noticed the change before anyone said a word. As Charles discussed the schedule, his voice suddenly grew weaker. Catherine watched from across the table as Charles gripped the edge of it, as if determination alone was keeping him steady. She stayed calm and said nothing, but she knew this was far more than ordinary exhaustion. It was a warning no one could ignore. Charles tried to continue speaking, but after another sentence he stopped again. That second pause said more than words ever could. William quietly pushed back his chair, firm enough for everyone to hear. In that instant, he was no longer just a son. He had stepped into the role of protector. The dinner ended early without explanation. Soon after Charles returned to his private rooms, a confidential medical review was ordered. A medical review is a detailed examination by trusted doctors to determine what the king could safely continue doing. That decision mattered because the situation had shifted from private concern to official planning. Later, Catherine found William standing alone in a corridor, looking towards Charles's closed door. He stayed silent, knowing the questions facing the family had suddenly become much bigger than anyone had expected. William stood in silence, carrying the painful thought that his father's declining health could become a turning point for the nation. Catherine remained beside him, and without saying a word, he knew she had seen the same change. Together, they understood their family had crossed a line that could not be undone. Behind closed doors, Charles's private team began preparing a reduced duty plan without informing the wider household. The plan would shift some responsibilities away from the king to protect his health. That mattered because every duty passed on would quietly signal the same reality. The monarch could no longer carry the same workload as before. The dinner revealed the first warning, but the private meeting that followed exposed even deeper tensions. There were no cameras, no formal statements, no public appearances, only William, Catherine, Camilla, and Charles together, facing a truth that could no longer be avoided. Camilla was the first to speak. She wanted to know why she had not been involved in shaping the announcement, why William and Catherine had delivered the message first, and why Charles's condition had been shared with such direct honesty. The official family statement about the king's serious health decline did more than explain his condition. It changed the balance of trust inside the palace. Charles remained seated, visibly exhausted by the weight of the moment. For a while he listened without interrupting, letting the silence speak for itself. Charles watched Camilla speak, then looked towards William standing near the door, as if protecting both his father and the future ahead. William understood why this moment mattered. If the family broke apart behind closed doors, the damage would eventually reach the public. If the truth became something to fight over, the monarchy itself could suffer. Camilla argued that the announcement made Charles appear too weak. Her words came from fear, but sounded like blame. William answered calmly but firmly. He said hiding the truth would have hurt the family's credibility far more than honesty ever could. Catherine noticed William's jaw tighten and saw the tension on Camilla's face. She realized grief was quickly turning into conflict. Before the argument could grow, she stepped forward. Without raising her voice, she reminded everyone that Charles was still in the room, still listening, and still a person beneath the title. That reminder changed the mood. The monarchy had already asked so much of Charles, it could not also ask him to watch his family argue about how vulnerable he was allowed to seem. Charles finally spoke. According to a private account later recorded by a senior household note-taker, he personally approved William and Catherine's role in delivering the announcement. He believed they could protect both the monarchy and the public. The crown, the royal institution and its responsibilities, needed one steady voice, and he trusted theirs. William showed no sign of victory. He looked heartbroken. Catherine stayed beside him, knowing this was not a triumph, but another painful step forward. Then Camilla learned that some royal duties had already been reviewed and could move to William sooner than expected. She fell silent, realizing the future was arriving faster than anyone had imagined. Charles lowered his gaze, and the mood in the room instantly changed. He had not only confirmed his trust in William and Catherine, he had also signaled that the monarchy was entering a new chapter. Camilla understood it, Catherine felt it, William carried the weight of it. From that moment, the crisis was about more than health or family pain. It was also about leadership and responsibility. Power inside the monarchy rarely arrives with dramatic speeches. It moves through schedules, signatures, official papers, and who is invited into the room first. After the king's serious health update, one reality became impossible to ignore. William was no longer waiting for the future. He was stepping into it, while Catherine quietly helped him carry responsibilities Charles could no longer manage alone. William sat with a duty folder in front of him, but could not bring himself to open it. A duty folder contains the schedules, public appearances, and official work assigned to senior royals. It was more than paperwork. Every page marked an event the king might not attend, bringing William closer to a role he never wanted to reach under these circumstances. Catherine saw the struggle on his face. She reminded him that supporting Charles did not mean replacing him. It meant giving the king the space to decide what he could still do with confidence. Her words helped steady William, who needed the chance to be a son before carrying the full weight of public duty. Charles's reduced schedule was no longer seen as temporary. His condition had become a serious constitutional and emotional challenge. Constitutional simply refers to matters involving how the monarchy carries out its role within the country's public system. That mattered because Charles was not only a father facing serious health challenges, he was also the monarch. Every cancelled engagement raised new questions about who would take on the crown's responsibilities. A palace aide quietly arrived with a marked schedule from Charles's office. According to a documented household account, the king had already assigned William to several engagements before the public announcement. Charles had recognized the change in his condition long before most people realized it. He had not ignored the situation, he had been preparing for it. That realization hit William hard because it showed his father had been planning for the future while quietly carrying his own burden. Looking at Catherine, William admitted he never wanted this moment to come through his father's suffering. Catherine did not offer empty reassurance. Instead, she reminded him that Charles still had dignity, still had choices, and still had a son ready to stand beside him. William listened, but the weight on his shoulders only grew heavier. Camilla noticed the change when decisions that once reached her first began passing through William's office instead. She was stunned to learn that some instructions were now being reviewed by the prince before receiving final approval. She had expected the pain of illness, but watching influence quietly shift felt like a different kind of loss. Charles remained at the center of the monarchy, yet more responsibility was gradually moving toward William. Catherine recognized it, Camilla felt it, and William could no longer convince himself it was only temporary. Power did not arrive with a crown or a grand speech. It came through revised schedules, carefully chosen words, and a father quietly preparing his son before he felt ready. By the next morning, the palace was no longer asking what had happened. It was responding to a reality that could not be reversed. Morning came, but the palace did not feel alive. It felt heavy. News of Charles's health had spread quickly, and every hallway seemed filled with quiet concern. Staff whispered over changing schedules, while aides updated briefing papers. Camilla stood alone by a window, realizing the familiar routine had changed. She watched an aide remove Charles's next engagement card from the schedule board. She did not stop him, she simply watched as it disappeared. An engagement card is a reminder of an official royal appearance, and removing it meant the king might no longer attend. That small action made one thing clear. Charles's absence would soon be visible to everyone, not just those inside the palace. William received an important call before the household had fully settled into the day. He paused before answering, knowing every call now carried greater weight. A senior courtier, an experienced palace official trusted with royal matters, informed him that emergency schedule changes were already underway. The palace was no longer waiting to see what happened next. It was adapting to the king's condition. Catherine listened as William's replies became shorter and more measured. She knew he was not being distant. He was preparing himself for a much larger public role, not as a celebration, but because the situation demanded it. William was being drawn toward the future while still trying to remain a son. Catherine recognized that struggle before anyone else. As Charles reduced his public duties, private calls went out to senior family members. The king remained at the center of the monarchy, but his condition meant others had to step forward sooner than expected. That mattered because the monarchy depends on continuity, the need to appear steady even when the family is facing difficult moments. William understood that. Catherine understood it too. Camilla felt the change most when another folder quietly disappeared from Charles's desk. The palace prepared two versions of the next public statement. One carried hope, the other reflected a more serious possibility. A public statement is the official message released by the royal household to keep the nation informed. Having two drafts showed that the situation was uncertain and no one could promise what would come next. During a private briefing, Catherine learned that Charles had personally asked her to stay close to William during future meetings. She accepted the request quietly, but it meant a great deal. The king was placing his trust not only in his son, but in her ability to support him through the growing responsibilities ahead. When Catherine shared the request, William looked at her without saying a word. In that moment, titles no longer mattered, only the challenge they were facing together.
Nearby, Camilla watched preparations continue and realized the crisis was no longer measured only by words, but by the quiet decisions unfolding around them. Catherine watched William gather himself while Charles waited behind a closed door, carrying words only a father could say. When William finally entered the room alone, the crisis became painfully simple: a king, his heir, and a conversation neither wanted to have. Beyond the palace titles and traditions, this was just a father and son facing a heartbreaking reality.
Charles was no longer just the monarch. William was no longer only the heir. Sitting together in silence, they shared a moment where words mattered less than the emotions between them. Catherine remained outside the room, and for once there was nothing to shield the family from the truth. William entered alone because Charles had asked for a private conversation. A private royal room is simply a secure place where family members can speak without staff, advisors, or public attention. That mattered because this was no longer about palace planning. It was about a father speaking honestly with his son. Charles looked at William with a warmth rarely seen in public. He knew the announcement had changed everything, and that William had carried its weight before the nation. The monarchy now faced a difficult new chapter, with reduced duties, changing responsibilities, and greater expectations placed on the heir. Charles quietly apologized, not for being ill or needing help, but because the burden had come through fear instead of careful preparation. William lowered his head, taking in the weight of his father's words before finding the strength to respond. William quietly told Charles he was not afraid of the responsibility. He was afraid of losing his father because of it. Those words erased the distance between them. In that moment, there was no crown, only a father and son facing an uncertain future together. Charles reached for William's hand. It was a simple gesture, but it spoke for years of feelings left unspoken. The king had spent his life devoted to duty, and William had long understood the weight that silence could carry. Now they faced the truth together. Charles was still the monarch, but he was also a father, asking his son to be strong before either of them felt ready. According to a private family conversation later recorded in palace notes, Charles explained why he had chosen William and Catherine to share the difficult news. He wanted the public to see continuity with compassion. Continuity means the monarchy remains steady even when responsibilities begin to shift. That mattered because Charles wanted people to feel reassured without hiding the truth. William listened without interrupting. He understood Catherine had been chosen not for appearances, but because Charles trusted her judgment, calm nature, and ability to support him through difficult moments. Charles also made it clear that Camilla deserved respect and compassion, but the announcement needed to reflect the situation honestly. When the conversation ended, William slowly stood. He did not leave feeling relieved. He left changed. Charles watched him walk away with both pride and sadness, knowing his son had entered carrying fear, but left carrying determination. Catherine saw William's face the moment the door opened. She understood everything before he said a word. Their private conversation was over, but outside the palace, the nation was already reacting. By midday, the news had spread everywhere, through homes, offices, cafes, taxis, and busy streets where people stopped to take in the announcement. The update on King Charles's health had become more than a royal headline. It had turned into a national moment of reflection. Outside Buckingham Palace, people gathered quietly, sensing that the monarchy had reached a difficult turning point. William watched the public reaction on a muted television and stood still. The announcement dominated every news broadcast because he and Catherine spoke directly instead of relying on a formal palace statement. A royal update is an official message about an important event affecting the royal family or the crown. This one was not about ceremonies or celebrations. It was about the king's health and the future of the monarchy. Catherine remained beside William as broadcasters replayed his words. One presenter described the moment as a major test for the monarchy, highlighting William's composure and Catherine's steady support. That mattered because people were no longer reacting only to the news. They were also watching who seemed prepared to face what came next. Outside Buckingham Palace, a small crowd quietly gathered. An elderly woman placed a single white rose against the railings and softly remarked that Charles had looked tired for a long time. The simple gesture captured the emotion many people were feeling. Buckingham Palace, one of the monarchy's best-known working residences, is a powerful symbol of royal life. That mattered because people gathered there for a reason. The king's health had made that symbol feel deeply personal. Watching the crowds, William quietly turned away. He was not hiding from grief. He was overwhelmed that strangers had seen the pain he had been carrying since the family dinner at Windsor. Catherine stayed close without saying a word. She knew William could face public duty, but facing the nation's concern for his father was a far greater challenge. A newspaper's front-page headline read, "The King steps back. William and Catherine lead the nation through pain." The words echoed through the palace because they made the transition feel real even before every decision had been announced. A front page is the first page of a newspaper, where the biggest story of the day appears. One broadcaster described the defining image as not the crown, a palace balcony, or a royal carriage, but Catherine standing beside William as he delivered the difficult news. Hearing that later during a media briefing left Catherine uneasy. She never wanted to become a symbol. She stood there because William needed her, Charles trusted her, and the country needed reassurance. From another room, Camilla listened to the public reaction and realized that many people were already looking to William and Catherine as the monarchy's steady public faces. Camilla felt the weight of the public reaction, but she understood why it was happening. Charles's illness had created uncertainty, and in difficult moments, people naturally look for steady leadership. The king had already decided where that sense of stability should come from. The confirmation about King Charles's health did not break the monarchy. It revealed the people behind the titles. It showed the fear behind the ceremony, the love behind the duty, and the emotional cost of passing responsibility during a painful time instead of a celebration. William and Catherine did more than share difficult news. They helped guide their family through one of its hardest moments. Charles accepted his reduced role with quiet dignity. After signing the revised duty plan, he set down his pen and looked at William with pride rather than defeat. A revised duty plan is an updated list of royal responsibilities designed to protect the king's health while allowing the monarchy to continue its work. That decision was not about giving up. It was about putting honesty before pride and the future before appearances. William did not smile. He understood exactly what his father's look meant. Succession is simply the process by which the next monarch takes on the role when the reigning monarch can no longer do so. To many people, succession no longer felt like a distant tradition. It felt deeply personal. Catherine remained beside William, quietly supporting him and helping him stay composed as he carried both his public duty and his private grief. Catherine had become more than a calm presence. She became the quiet strength that helped William stand when his family's private heartbreak became a moment the whole nation was watching. William knew it, Charles knew it, and everyone inside the palace could feel it. Camilla's sorrow was real as well. She had watched the familiar rhythm of royal life change and saw more responsibility gradually move toward William and Catherine.
In time, Camilla accepted the difficult reality. Supporting the king meant also accepting the future he had chosen to prepare. According to a documented private palace account, Charles made one thing clear: he wanted compassion instead of secrecy. He did not want the monarchy to hide behind carefully chosen words. He wanted the public to see honesty, strength, and a family facing hardship together. William carried that honesty. Catherine brought calm and reassurance. Charles gave them his trust, and Camilla, though deeply affected, came to understand that sometimes love means allowing others to step forward when the moment demands it. This was more than a king's health. It marked the moment William and Catherine took on a greater role as steady figures for the future of the monarchy. Charles showed honesty, William showed resilience, Catherine showed grace. Together they guided the crown through one of its most difficult chapters with dignity and resolve. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with others who follow the royal family. We'd also love to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment below with your opinion. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.